on Instagram, and now it looks like we're live on YouTube. So welcome, you guys. I'm going to be going back and forth because I have you guys live on 2 different areas because I want to see your guys' comments. And then I also have notes on my computer about the fireside chat that Poshmark just did. And I wanted to go over that pretty much immediately just because I know that there wasn't a lot of you guys that were able to sign up for the fireside chat. I noticed when they started the Zoom that it said it was recorded. However, I know a lot of people were told prior that it wasn't going to be recorded. So I jotted down some notes. And if you guys want to talk about it in the comments, feel free to give your responses as well as ask any questions. But I'm going to pop over to my computer really quick because I have some of my notes in here. That must be a little trippy watching on Instagram and also on YouTube. Okay, so the fireside chat. First of all, I was kind of interested right at the very end. They were expressing how I'm seeing your guys' frustrations, how this is going to potentially be a new way that they're going to communicate with us. I don't know about you guys, but I think that that is awesome if they are going to start taking topics and then going live on Zooms to do these fireside chats, because it would be great to be able to have that conversation. Unfortunately, as they just mentioned in the fireside chat, the comments were going so fast that they just absolutely could not answer many questions that were coming through that way. However, I was thankful that they did do a survey prior because they did come in with being able to answer some of the questions that I know I was asking. Let me know if your guys' questions was answered in the fireside chat, if you were able to ask some questions. So the first thing they mentioned, well, not the first thing, what came to my mind that I was able to recollect is they said they have not changed their relationship with Google. In fact, they've put more money into it this year. They did say, though, however, Google has begun to support more of the listings with white backgrounds, as well as if you have new merchandise or anything with a barcode, make sure you're taking photos of that because Google is also pushing those listings up more. I feel like that's something we've already known. If you guys have been to Posh Fest before, if you're not and you just look at listings on Poshmark and maybe see different backgrounds, this might be news to you, but that is something that Google does support. And eBay's been saying that for a very long time. So that was one of the things that they mentioned, that perhaps that's why you're not seeing your listings trending in Google. Feel free to continue to make remarks and questions. I'm going to go through my notes and then we'll get to some of your guys' responses, remarks, questions. The other thing that they mentioned was there was obviously a search change. We can all agree on that at this point. Our items don't seem to be searching as well as they were before. They said that they had done a test. So they had like test 1, test 2 group of people, some that were using the new search, others that were using the old search. And they were able to look at their back end and go, okay, based on someone pressing on this listing, there was more support in them actually purchasing the item basically with this new search. So that's why they went to this new search. I don't know about you guys, but that's one of my frustrations though. In eBay, we call that listing impressions or SEO, and that's all information and data that eBay gives us so that way we can look at what's selling well, how long is someone on one of our listings, like how many views have we received on a specific listing. Okay, so maybe do we need to tweak the pricing? Do we need to tweak the shipping? That's all information that's provided to us at eBay to then be able to support our stores better. On Poshmark's end, apparently they have that information, but they're making decisions on how to move forward with their platform by getting that data all together. I wish that they would give us more of that data so that way we can best be able to support the direction they're going to with our listings to make sure that we're also seeing growth as well. And I will also like to say at the very beginning, I did appreciate that they said for a minute, okay, we're hearing your guys, we're hearing your questions. This is why we're doing this fireside chat. And they took a moment to kind of like acknowledge where the state of everything is. And they said, just as many of us have said, like, if we're not making money, they're not making money. So they really are trying to do this to support us. But I do also think it's these kinds of lives, it's these kinds of conversations that's going to continue to help the direction in a positive direction with where Poshmark is wanting to go. The other thing that they mentioned is we're kind of coming out of our pandemic now, and it is a new season and people are beginning to shop differently. And to that, I would agree. That kind of falls into my responsibility. Just like when we're in Christmas time, I start to think maybe I need to have more merchandise on hand that's brand new because people would be more apt to maybe purchase these items for gifts. And you know what I mean? So you start to kind of think ahead. Excuse me, I'm coming off of having a sinus infection. My voice is still there, but not so much. And so when I'm seeing different seasons, different trends in the year, I'm making better decisions with what I am listing on the platforms. And they kind of talked about that. Like COVID has changed things, but now we're coming out of that. We are starting to see some inflation prices. They didn't say that, but kind of I'm thinking about what is the state of the US and just economy in the world right now. And they were saying that could be why you're also seeing decreases in sales. I do think there still has to be a little bit more to it because I don't feel like there would be a full community seeing massive decreases in sales and there not being potentially some other things involved with that. And they could be just still trying to collect that data to determine what's going to be the best way to present that to us as a full community. The reason why, I really wanted to get all this information to you guys because I know not everyone was able to sign up. But what really made me say, I need to do this like now, immediately, is right at the end, they were asking people to ask questions and then they just got like flooded. They're like, okay, in the future, we need to figure out how to ask questions differently so we can see them and be able to answer them because they pretty much ended at 2:20 because they just couldn't see the questions coming in. What got me was the mass amount of negativity and hate that I was seeing coming through on the comments. I think it's very important for us to express what's going on, what we are seeing, and how do we make, how do we tell Poshmark these things so that way we can see positive changes with our stores and with this platform. But I don't want to see us get to a point where it's just flat out like hate that's coming at them. Like, I was just for a minute kind of sat back and thought about the girls that were receiving all of these comments. And I was like, I just feel sorry for them in that moment. I'm like, I know what it's like to have, a video on Instagram, a reel go viral, and suddenly it hits a different market that doesn't understand reselling. And they paint the way that I'm doing things so differently and so negatively. And I'm like, this is wrong, but I can't do anything to change their mind. I have to be on the receiving end of a lot of that negativity. And then I have to check my mental health and make sure that I'm still good to continue to come out here and help you guys see what's going to be the best ways that we can move forward in the reseller community. And when I just saw that, it kind of broke my heart. I think we need to be doing better in the community of communicating our thoughts. And, let's put my husband and I in the best situation. If we ever come in a conversation where we're both very emotional about what it is that we're feeling and we're siding on two different sides with, we both will say, let's come back to this conversation. I'm not at a good place to have a conversation with you about this. I think I'm going to emotionally react to you right now, and I might regret what I'm going to say later. So let's just take a minute to breathe, and then I'll be able to think a little clearer and come to you with what it is that I'm actually trying to say. And I think that's what we need to do moving forward. If they're going to continue with these fireside chats, I think we could be very productive in there being more transparency, because that was a term that they used a lot in the fireside chat was I'm hearing about transparency. We need to be more transparent. We need to be communicating more to you guys. We hear it. So this is kind of what we're taking a step in the direction to be better at communicating to you guys. So I think in turn, we need to go, okay, we see that you're doing that. So we're going to communicate with you. Does that make sense, guys? I kind of went off on a tangent there. It just broke my heart. Okay, I see all the love on YouTube. So we're gonna or on Instagram. Okay, so I'm gonna pop over to YouTube really quick. Yes, it was slightly frustrating. You do like the idea of chats. You're glad that you went to the chat. That's good. I do agree. There was definitely a lot more questions that they could have answered. I just think they need to be a better way of being able to provide them with those questions. Didn't watch the fireside chat, but all the negative comments is not a giving solution. I agree. It is disappointing. How are you demanding live support so you can have someone to yell at? I 100% agree. There's a way to express that you don't agree with changes without being nasty. That's kind of the point of that I'm trying to get across at this point too. That was awful and not ready to address any questions. Yeah, I think that for their first fireside chat, this was a really great way to kind of get some information out there. And I do believe that there was another point that they did make, and I recorded it, but then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do lives right now and talk to you guys about it. So I didn't write down the points. If you were on the chat, feel free to message and bring it to my recollection. It was bad. What did you guys feel was bad about it? I would love to hear that. It was a joke. If you feel like it was a joke, what did you feel like? How did you feel like it was a joke? Honestly, I think at this point, people need to manage this and just move forward. I opted for Instagram. Minutes 14 to say before we wrap this up was wild to me. They did not address anything. All the comments were, yeah, they really, I felt like honed in on like one topic and kind of answered the surrounding questions around that. And the biggest thing we've been, in the community talking about is the search changes and how is that impacting things. And I got many DMs of people telling me, I think that they've pulled their contract with Google. And so I haven't publicly said that because I was like, I need to hear that from Poshmark to know if that's truth or not. And I couldn't find that anywhere. So I did appreciate that they brought that up in the conversation because I wanted that put at bay if it wasn't true. That was old news. Yeah, the Google thing to me was kind of in that boat. It was a little bit of old news. Do we know if slight white would change? So, kind of the thing that I'm feeling like in the cover shots with Poshmark. So what they're just saying is just as white as you possibly can. There's different apps that can make it like stark white. And I believe they did use that terminology of just being white as you possibly can. But the biggest things is like if you're someone who likes to put the brand logo on the cover shot so people can see the item and immediately see that, or maybe even put like kind of your copyright, like your brand watermark over your photos. I wouldn't do that for your cover shots because I think that could be why it's not getting up in search. Actually, I know they want it just to be clean white when it comes to the search on Google. They did more than eBay ever has or will. Also, sales are also slow for people who sell saturated items or low demand. List high-end women's shoes, and you won't have an issue with sales. This is a really good point, Tommy Podcast. I just kind of jumped around on your name. My apologies. If you haven't seen my YouTube video, I talked about how I was closing up my Poshmark store. And I kind of did that indefinitely because I wanted to see where Poshmark was at. But for me, it was not profitable to maintain my Poshmark store because I have a virtual assistant who cross-lists everything over to Poshmark. And I just wasn't seeing the profitability there anymore. But that doesn't mean I don't love Poshmark. It is my baby. It is where I started. And so I want to continue to see them grow and thrive. And I felt like as I took a step back, I was able to kind of pivot my store. My store has maintained, bins, items, lower priced pieces, larger listing amounts. So I had over 3,000 plus items in my store. But I think you made a really good point. I feel like there's a change in the economy right now too. You can even kind of look at like Depop and what people are willing to pay on certain items. I think that if you're doing more of that 25 to 35 and up, you're going to see some success right now when it comes to listings. And so when I do reopen my Poshmark store, that is where I'm going to pivot my direction towards. I've been in it for a while, so I kind of know my analytics and what sells well for me and what sells at a higher rate. And so because of that, I'm going to have a store that is going to support those kinds of items. So that is something they did address in the fireside chat. And as much as we can get frustrated and be like, all of the fault is on you because you changed the search. And so that's where everything's happening. Sometimes we need to go, okay, but what has changed maybe that I need to pivot the way that I'm shopping too? Anyone like ever loved when you used to sell like 3-4 years ago, like Free People in Anthropology, and it didn't matter what item in those brands you were purchasing, it was selling so well. Gone are the days that that's the case. Like now it's the newer style stuff, you know what I mean? So as years go on, we do have to kind of change the way that we are buying because certain brands suddenly pick up again. And then other times they're not doing so well. Like Crocs are hot one minute and then they're not the next. So we have to constantly keep an eye out of what's happening, what's on trend, and not just like trendy styles, but also in brands as well. So I think you made a really, really great point. I feel like if people aren't willing to put in the effort to improve, they're always going to complain. I do agree to that, but that's why I really just wanted to come out here with some educational things. I think that the more education you guys have, the more empowered you are to have a successful business. I think at the heart of everything, I want you guys to have a successful business in reselling, and I think Poshmark does too. So this is why I wanted to give you guys the educational portion. I got to scroll down on Instagram. You guys are coming out like hotcakes over here. Thank you. And I am going to be saving these guys. So if you think that people need to come to this later to watch the lives, you can direct them here. They're still showing up in Google when I'm searching. I would agree. Actually, now that you mentioned that, I do agree to that. Photo room is a great option to help clear your backgrounds, make it white. They said they're spending more money on Google. Yes. And that kind of shocked me, especially when I heard people speculating that they weren't there anymore. They were not prepared. They should have had 20 minutes of talking points and 10 minutes of discussion. I would agree to that. I think that they could have talked, or they could have answered some more questions. And maybe they thought that the conversation that they were going to have, they would be able to talk a little more about it. Yes, Poshmark is great for higher priced items right now, whereas I see more success on Mercari for the mall brand items. I've heard that. And I do also know that people have mentioned on eBay before, because you can do lower discounted shipping, not discounted, but like cheaper shipping alternatives, that some of those mall brands do better over there too. I'm sitting on my floor, so sorry, I'm moving around, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so they did obviously mention the course. In my brain, I'm thinking course, but like training for what is the new search, that I think it's going to be like May 4th or something like that, the first week of May. And they did mention that it is going to be recorded. So if you guys did not get in, I did not, I am on a wait list for that one. They were going to go more in depth about the search. And maybe that's why they didn't do it in the fireside chat, but they're going to go more in depth about what can you expect with this new search. They did also mention that they've heard people say, oh, that was the other thing. People were asking short short titles or long titles, what's going to be the best thing to do. They did express that still do describe your items as much as you possibly can. So use the full characters. But I think their biggest goal was to try to make sure any of the inactive listings are just not being pushed to the front, because as a buyer's experience, that's where people are getting frustrated with purchasing items. And then, someone cancels because they don't have the item anymore because they donated it. Nicole sells low end to high end, and she does very well. Jane, bear in mind, though, that she also has a large following. So she does a lot of hauls and people can see the items that they're picking up too. But that is a good point. You can still look at some of these different influencers and think like, oh, well, they're doing this sort of model of a reseller store. This is the model that I can do. But, I've actually been on several podcasts, and one of the main questions I get asked at a certain point is, do you feel like Instagram or just social media impacts your traffic to your stores? And to me, I've always seen this is just kind of showing you guys my journey of my store to inspire you guys to do the same, and then educating you guys on what I'm picking up. But I'm beginning to see more and more people going like, oh, I like that item, I want to buy that from you. And I'm beginning to realize that there is not an importance, but there is traffic that does come from these sources that I wasn't thinking of before. So if you are looking at some of those options of like, well, someone else is doing it this way, kind of consider that when you're thinking about that. Just a thought. But everything started to change. Sales started to drop for everyone when Poshmark made changes to the algorithm. It's not only a couple people complaining of low sales, it's hundreds. I do agree to that. And that's why I feel like there's probably more data that they're trying to collect and then maybe presenting that to us at some point, because I don't understand how there could have just been such a drastic difference in the ways that people were shopping like all at the same time. Like not everyone made a decision to just change the way that they were going to shop all of a sudden. And I know that they mentioned like things are opening up more now and people are buying more in stores again, but I'm also seeing more people buying online now, because like even my Goodwill doesn't even allow dressing rooms to remain open. Like they're still closed. So I think there's still a lot of areas where people are still buying online because it's more convenient. But that's just kind of one of the assumptions that I have found so far. The search hack is about SEO. Okay, that's good to know. While I don't agree with the angry comments, I understand this is people's livelihoods and they're scared and feeling helpless. I very much agree to that statement. I think that when people, if this is their livelihood, it is a little nerve-wracking and you could react out of a certain way. That was just one of the things that I did want to address, because I'm someone that I can think about how I'm feeling in a situation, but also try to put myself in someone else's shoes, and emphasize. I guess I'm just very quick to think and consider that sometimes. And I like to look at both sides before making decisions, if that makes sense. Okay, do any of you guys have any more questions? I don't want to hold this out too long, because I am going to be saving these for later. Are any of you guys signed up to do the search hacks? And if so, are you, or if you didn't, are you going to watch it? Empathy, we love to see it. You're so sweet. Also, I did do some like stats. Just, I was kind of curious. I wanted my pulse on how everyone was doing on Poshmark just yesterday. I think I was also coming out of like feeling better from the sinus infection, that I asked you guys some different questions. And I saw a lot of remarks, a lot of questions, or not a lot of questions, but just asking people how their sales were doing on Poshmark. So I'm going to show you guys some of that analytics in my Insta stories later if you guys are interested. I might save that to my highlights. So if you're watching this later on YouTube and Instagram, you can go back to that. Yes, I'll be watching the search hacks. Okay. Nope, I wasn't exclusive enough. I am so thankful that they are recording that one. And like I said, I don't know with this fireside chat if they're going to be posting it on their Poshmark or not, but I know that the training they're going to record. I did feel excluded though. I'm not going to lie. I was a little bummed out. I signed up and have a spot. After today's call, I won't expect much. I am hopeful you guys are going to have to relay that information to me. I don't know how quick they are to going to post the search hacks, but I'm hopeful we're going to get some answers. And I literally only have like 12 items left on my Poshmark store, and then it's closed. So I'm hoping I can just come back in to my Poshmark store with new clarity and ways to list items. I'll keep you guys all up to date on that though. All right, I'm not seeing anything else coming in. Was this helpful for you guys? Did you like me just going live and kind of sharing how things are? Fingers crossed, I agree. Ashley, if you want to come to Spell Can, you can join me for the hacks. Oh, that's so sweet. It was very weird Clubhouse MLM exclusive vibes. I'm not vibing with it. Yeah, I've definitely learned over the years, because I used to be a part of a network marketing business for 10 years. I've definitely seen how a lot of businesses do kind of take notes of way network marketing businesses have been successful, and they do kind of integrate it in some of their business models, which always does kind of vibe weird, especially if you didn't have good experiences with that sort of business. All right, guys, I'm going to save this. You guys can go back and watch the points if you are just hopping onto this. And feel free, you guys know this, but feel free to always message me and ask me any questions. I'm more than happy to help. I will see you guys later. It's weird to go to two screens. Bye, guys. Thanks for the live. You're welcome. Your live stream will stop immediately and no longer be live. End.